it's been exactly 1 year since the goods and services tax was implemented. The GST regime, which has replaced more than 17 different taxes and cesses, both at the state and central level, has been hailed as a path-breaking reform. Now, any big reform is bound to have teething issues, and so does GST. There have been several industries which faced a lot of implementation difficulties, IT glitches, confusion over refunds. But the question is, are these issues being addressed fast enough? And what more really needs to be done going forward? Joining me on the show today is Abhishek Rastogi, the tax expert. Our phone lines are also open, so call us with all your questions about GST and we'll have Abhishek Rastogi answer those questions. Abhishek, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Well, it's been 1 year since the GST has been implemented. Before we get down and break up the issues point by point, in your opinion, do you think the hits of GST, implementing the GST, the positives and the benefits have outweighed the negatives or the implementation issues, teething trouble really?
Right. So I think if we see the reform of this size, certainly, it is not an easy reform in a country like India where we have so much diversity in terms of the state complexities and so on and so forth, and the federal structure for sure.
Right.
So I think 10 out of 10, if not given, then maybe 9 out of 10 should be given to the GST Council.
Okay, right.
GST Council has done a good job, and I think the number of changes which have come over the period of time, were the need of the hour. Because as soon as the GST Council or the government would realize that there are certain changes which need to be incorporated, the businesses are feeling some problem in certain areas, those were addressed right from the word go. And that's why if you would see the last 1 year, the GST Council has met so many times, there have been so many revisions and all that has happened. So I think, the reform of such a massive size when it happens, and we ourselves wanted GST to come, we know for a fact that, it is not that easy to implement such a big reform, which we today call the reform of the century as far as the taxes are concerned in India. So I think those teething problems were bound to happen. But I think on the compliance side, on the notifications, rate rationalization, and a lot of these changes which happened over the period of time, there have been a lot of things which have been addressed pragmatically by the GST Council. But yes, there are certain things which need to be seen or addressed in the coming year as well. So, while we would understand that, there are certain priorities of the government, certain sectors have to be looked into, certain transactions will have to be addressed so that, the broader impact on the economy is good. But I think overall, if you ask me, the government and the GST Council has done a very, very good job, and the benefits will reap in the years to come ahead.
Right. So, Abhishek, there have been a lot of reports that have been coming out in a look back at this last year of GST, and I just want to read out one of these reports which says that GST has not delivered on the promised formalization of the economy yet. The glitches in the regime has increased the demand for cash. Now, these 2 points, would you agree with them?
Oh, sorry, I didn't get the points, please. The voice was not a little clear.
Right.
Can you please repeat those points?
Yes, Abhishek, the question is that the glitches in the regime has increased the demand for cash, and that the GST has not delivered on the promised formalization of the economy as yet. These are the 2 points which this particular report mentions. So my question to you is, do you agree with it?
I think that generalization is not a good thing to do. What has happened is that GST has a broad impact or a major impact on the MSME sector, lot of cash transactions. But if you see the direct tax, and this is how I would like to summarize it. If we see the compliances and the collection of from the GST side, the collections are increasing. But at the same time, if we analyze the direct tax collections have increased. So which means that even if certain sectors are involved in cash transactions, what is more important is the data analytics which is done to today analyze that how much inputs have been used by a particular industry, what should be the output, and you would not believe that there are already notices where there are apprehensions about all of these tax evasion of such transactions. So I think tax evasion will not be permitted by any combination now. Under the GST regime, there will be a lot of mechanisms to track such loopholes, tax evasions, and I'm not even going to the matching concept, which may or may not come in the near future. But I think a lot of this data analytics would help the government to analyze the transactions, to analyze the businesses, to examine the input-output ratios, and to get back to the assessees where there are chances of tax evasion.
Right. Now, so the other important point that has also been brought up time and again is that there is a rationale, of course, for why India cannot have a single GST rate. And that makes perfect sense. But the fact is, at this point, we're talking about a regime where there are 6 different GST rates. And do you think there is still scope to further consolidate this?
See, I think let's not have. I think it is very difficult for the government, to operate. If GST would have come, let's say, with 16% rate, we would have criticized the government, saying that how you could have medicines at that rate, life-saving drugs at that rate, lot of essential commodities at that rate. Today, we can't have everything at a single rate. See, understand that the inequalities of income in India as compared to a lot of developed economies is very different. Today, you can't make basic necessities taxed at a single rate. So imagine a lot of these things which are today in 5% rate, if these are being consumed by the lower income group and so on and so forth, if these are taxed at 16%, tomorrow, there'll be a lot of hue and cry, against the government that how is it possible? How you could tax medicines at 16%? Is it feasible to have a lot of these food grain items, etc., or food items at 16%? And at the same time, you have cars, etc., at 16% and the luxury cars at 16%. So I think overall, if you see the rate structure to start with, it's not a bad rate structure at all. But yes, having said that, I think the government needs to tweak these rates in some way. 12% and 18% certainly has to merge at around 16%. It could be 15%, 15 and a half or 16, whatever it may be, the revenue neutral rate. That is one way. And of course, few items from 28 has to come down to 18%. For example, there could be items like cameras. Cameras today are taxed at 28%, which may be a high rate for cameras. But luxury cars, etc., they need to be taxed at a higher rate. Right. So I think, yes, going forward, there has to be trimming down of the list from 5%, so that few items from the 5% go to the exempted category, few items from 5% go to 16% category, 12 and 18 gets merged at 16, and then over the period of time, even the 5 rate is removed, and maybe somewhere around 15% is the median rate. Exemption 15% and 28%. So that's how I look at, but I don't think in India it will be possible to have a single rate structure till the economy goes to that level.
Right. All right. Abhishek, I want to, talk about specifically about bringing fuel under GST. And of course, we've had Mr. Arun Jaitley also talk about the issues and why that will still take some more time. But before getting to that, let's take a look at this report. Now, government, of course, is celebrating the first anniversary of GST. The debate continues whether fuel prices will be brought under the GST. The centre has assured that it is considering bringing fuel under GST, but will it effectively bring down the prices of fuel, and will the common man benefit if fuel is brought under GST? Take a look first at this report.
GST should cover all the petroleum products. We are sincerely appealing to the state governments, to the GST Council, to look into this issue. One of the prime commodity petroleum product, primarily diesel, petrol, LPG, all these should be, LPG is already in the GST, but petrol and diesel should come under GST.
Even after a year of the rollout of GST and the prodding from the centre, petrol and diesel are yet to be brought under the GST, and the common man continues to bear the brunt of sky-high fuel prices.
Here's how much you and I pay for fuel. Here in the national capital, the price of petrol stands at 75.63. And here's the breakup. The price that is charged to the dealers for petrol stands at 36.51, while the rest are taxes, which means we are paying approximately 35 rupees as taxes, which is essentially excise duty of 19.48, while VAT for petrol is charged at 16.09.
While the debate continues, the Prime Minister suggested that states could be allowed to levy taxes over and above 28% if fuel is brought under GST. If petrol diesel are to be brought into GST, then states will be allowed to levy the taxes on top of 28% to prop up revenue. It will take some time to include petrol and diesel in GST as the states have divergent views on it. If petrol products are brought into GST, then there will be minor impact on the incidence of tax and minor impact on prices. The price of petrol and diesel will continue to be driven by global factors. Leading experts believe that GST may not really be the solution to the common man's woes.
It's the taxation structure. Both excise and VAT are quite high. And that is the main reason. It's almost 100% for petrol in certain states and about 70 to 80% for diesel.
But we should not forget that the state governments have the right to levy additional cesses even on this GST rate. So unless they impose a sort of self-discipline, the benefit may not long last.
The Petrol Dealers Association has backed the introduction of GST, but they are against the states levying taxes above the highest slab of 28%.
रेवेन्यू इकट्ठा नहीं होता है सरकार का, और यही एक सोर्स है जिससे रेवेन्यू इकट्ठा होता है, जिसके लिए हम फाइट कर रहे हैं कि और सेक्टर्स को एक्सप्लोर करे सरकार रेवेन्यू इकट्ठा करने के लिए। और बहुत बड़ा एक जो सरकार का करीबन कई सरकारों का 60 to 70% रेवेन्यू राज्य सरकारों का ये स्टेट जो है वो पेट्रोलियम सेक्टर से लेती है।
While the government is highlighting its achievement on GST Day, people are still awaiting some respite on fuel.
The prices of fuel is burning a hole in every Aam Aadmi's pocket, but the government is giving assurance after assurance saying that they are mulling bringing fuel prices under GST. But the experts are of the opinion that while fuel under GST is going to just marginally reduce the cost for the people, it is not going to be a long-term solution. In New Delhi, this is Apurva Sridhar for Mirror Now.
All right. Abhishek, before we start discussing this angle of fuel being under GST, we've got a caller with us. Deepak Agarwal is on the phone line. Hi, Deepak. Thank you for calling. Go ahead. Do you have a question for Abhishek? All right, we'll reconnect with Deepak. But Abhishek, so, the big question, of course, on Mirror Now, this has been a big debate for us. We've been asking that fuel gets included under GST so that there will be some respite for the citizens of this country, given how fuel prices have really been rising. But the comment that came in from the Prime Minister saying that even if fuel is brought under GST, it will states will be allowed to add to 28%, over and above 28% taxes will be allowed to be added. Given that, do you think that it is not going to have much of an impact as far as the price itself of petrol and diesel, for example, are concerned, and it will just be more for bringing one more big item under the GST, into the GST basket?
See, let's understand arithmetic here. It's very, very simple. Today, when we see the composition of the entire cost per litre of petrol, assuming that it is 80 rupees, there is about 40 rupees of the element of tax, which you showed in your show itself just a couple of minutes back, both the central excise duty and the VAT. So assuming that the cost of the crude oil and the cost of refining it, etc., before the taxes are imposed on that is, let's say, 40 rupees. Now, assuming that it is 40 rupees and you impose 28% GST, and assuming that you even impose 28% of cess on that, about 56% of the taxes you are imposing, and I'm saying, let's say you are imposing 60% taxes. So on a base of 40 rupees, if you impose 60% taxes, then also it becomes 64 rupees. Now, as compared to the 80 plus rupee of petrol, which is today. So if you see the price in spite of these higher taxes, and I'm saying, let's say, even if the price control happens, and let's say even if it is put at 50 rupees, then imposing 60% of the taxes will not cross it to 80 rupees. So even if from 40 base we go to 50 base and applying 60% taxes, not even 56% taxes, the price doesn't touch 80 rupees. That's the first point. The second point is, today, what is the problem which these oil manufacturing companies are facing is that there is a lot of tax cascading. See, today, a lot of things happen, a lot of procurements of services, a lot of procurement of raw material, and so on and so forth, which happens on which GST is applicable, which becomes a cost to these refineries. A lot of refining processes are done by way of, whether by upstream or downstream, are done by way of job work processes. When a lot of these big refineries, both private and PSUs, have a lot of these job work transactions.
Abhishek, I am so sorry to interrupt you, but we've got another
now, they are not able to offset
on
that.
the phone line with us. Satish Bhatia is calling from Bangalore. Hi, Satish. Thanks for calling us. Go ahead. What would you like to say? Do you have a question?
Good evening. I've been watching the show. Overall, what sir is telling is okay, that, it's difficult for a large nation like India to, have GST, and there will be issues. What I feel is that this particular concept was taken as a trial and error method. Initially, nobody knew what has to be done or what is not to be done. And as time went on, lot of rectifications were done. My specific question is regarding mutual fund distributors.
Okay.
We were told that people having turnover below 20 lakhs need not register. Then after that, they said that reverse charge mechanism will be suspended. But we were forced to still register for GST, and we still don't have clarity. The mutual fund industry doesn't have any clarity. When we asked the mutual fund industry what has to be done, they said, no, nothing. We will just carry on and you register for GST. Otherwise, they said your commission will be held back. So in this case, what is the clarity on GST, what we are getting, even after a year?
Okay. Abhishek, would you like to respond to Satish? Any sort of clarity that you can provide him with?
Yeah, Satish, I think you have a very, very valid concern. See, because what has happened is that procurement of these services from unregistered dealer has been a subject matter of dispute. As late as 29th of June of this year, there has now been an extension of 3 years. I don't know whether you are tracking. I have filed a writ petition with respect to this provision, where we are challenging this reverse charge mechanism when it comes to procurement of services or goods from unregistered dealers. And we believe that reverse charge mechanism on these transactions should not be applicable at all. I think the government is committed in its endeavor to support industry, and that's why this extension is happening time and again. But yes, I think the government may have to soon take a call, or the judicial intervention is required when the constitutional validity of this provision is ultimately decided by the courts. Now, coming back to your question, where the automatic migration would have happened, or you're facing these problems, I think you need to address by telling the provisions to your contracting party that this is what the provision is. The unregistered dealer procurement has been deferred as far as the reverse charge is concerned. So I think you need to intimate them well in advance. But yes, I can understand that there are a lot of such problems around this issue.
All right, Satish, well, hope that sort of helped you get some clarity on the issue that you brought up. Thank you for calling us. Deepak Agarwal is back on the phone line with us. Hi, Deepak. Go ahead. What was your question?
Hi, Abhishek. I want to put forward a refund problem. I am a small taxpayer.
Go ahead, Deepak.
I am a small taxpayer, and I have wrongly credited a challan in the IGST in November. And from November, neither there is clarity. I visited the central GST They are saying they don't know. For 3-4 months, they were not clear of how it's to be done. Why can't it be automated? Why can't refunds be given online? You have to visit the office. Now I have visited the state GST. In the week, they were doing refunding. But still, nothing has happened. No refund. He said it'll take a week. I don't know why they are holding back a small sum of amount which I had put in. So can't they automate it rather than we going to offices and visiting them many times? I visited them many times. The state, the center, there's no clarity who's going to take up. They've not even allocated wards. A lot of confusion is there.
Right. Abhishek, what would be your response?
No, so I understand Deepak's concern that refunds have been a subject matter of all of these delays and all. There are in fact a lot of people who have not got any refund. Fortunately, his refund is not with respect to the inverted duty structure or the refund due to an exporter. His refund is because of some error which has been made and the challan has been wrongly paid. But I think yes, there are certain system glitches, system issues and so on and so forth. But what I suggest you, Deepak, to do is you should escalate the matter to your jurisdictional commissioner. Generally, commissioners and the principal chief commissioners of any commissionerate are very powerful. They understand the issue, and I'm sure if you would write to them, even in case the system is not working for some reason and there is some system glitch because of which it is not getting processed, escalation to your jurisdictional commissioner and principal chief commissioner may help you, because some direction can come from the senior commissioner to the jurisdictional assistant commissioner or to the superintendent and inspector, and that's the only way you would be able to get your money back.
All right. Deepak, hope you got some clarity regarding the question you asked. But Abhishek, unfortunately, we are completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us and helping our viewers get some clarity on the issues that are still plaguing them with regards to GST. Essentially, there are still a lot of issues that a lot of people are still facing in terms of implementation, whether it's IT glitches, like you heard our callers just say what the kind of issues that they're facing. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that GST is a regime. It's a long-awaited regime that finally was implemented 1 year ago. And like any big tax regime, the point is that it does have teething trouble. But the question that we have to now ask is, are these issues being addressed fast enough? And that is a question that we will continue to debate on Mirror Now. Thank you so much for watching.